You guys know that I love customizing my FPV stuff, and in a recent video I show you the T15, the Jumper T15 as my favorite new radio. And I did some small modifications to make it more unique, to make it more personal, more mine. But today I want to show you something bigger, a change or a customization that I did to this radio that is gonna make it look amazing. This is my current T15, totally customized, super cool. And I want to tell you how I got this from my blue radio that I had before. I was lucky enough to cross ways with this guy, Linus Rundblad, who is a great artist and was keen on helping me achieve what I wanted. I asked Linus if he could do something cool and unique with my radio, and he was more than happy to help me. What I needed was to get myself an extra case for the T15 so Linus could have a blank canvas to work with while I still had my radio and I kept flying with my T15, the blue one that I showed you in the beginning. I gave him all the freedom he wanted to play with this and just be creative, just do what he was good at. Linus kept teasing me with partial results while working on my radio until one day I got the case in the mail and it was time for me to take it to the next step, moving all the electronics from the blue T15 to this new case. The Jumper T15 inside is relatively easy to work with because things are straightforward and there are only a few of them that are very connected to each other and you have to have the right order to disassemble it, otherwise it might not work, but it's just a couple of them. Of course, the first thing to do when you're gonna do a job like this one is to take pictures of the original state of everything so you can use as a reference when you are building back the radio, when you're putting all the parts in the same place as before. And remember that these kind of electronics always have some kind of ribbon cable somewhere that you have to be careful not to pry, not to hold, not to break, and take your time and be patient. Opening the radio, you see immediately that there are some cables that connect both sides and you have to be careful while disconnecting them. We can start working on the back side, which is relatively easier because it only has one or two small parts with the antenna connected to that part. The most difficult part is the front. You have the gimbals, you have the screen, you have all the buttons, and you have to be careful how you disassemble it and how you put it back. In general, I started with the buttons, the switches, because those ones are the ones that are more on the top and they are easy to remove. You have to pay attention because I realized that the labels on the button from the outside are not the same labels as the inside. On the electronics, if you see on the board, the names of the buttons are different, and even if you can mix these and you can change them because you can always redo them on software, it's better that we keep the same order and it will be better and easier to put back and keep my radio as it was before. So I'm using a little bit of tape to label them and make sure that I put them back wherever they have to be. Switches are out, then we go with the gimbals. The gimbals are also easier in the sense that they don't disturb much more of the radio, and I'm guessing that it's with the idea that in the future you can change these gimbals by something newer, maybe CNC gimbals that Jumper can do or something like that. So we remove them and we have one step more to go. The most difficult part of disassembling this radio is going to be the screen. Remember that this screen is a color screen. It's going to be glued to the radio, so we have to be careful. Removing the electronics, it's going to discover one ribbon cable, actually two ribbon cables, that you have to carefully disconnect, and they are a bit uncomfortable in the sense that you can't pull apart too much the electronics from the case because you can put tension on these ribbon cables, and both of them are kind of in different directions, so you have to decouple one, having the electronics on one side, versus decouple the other one, having the electronics on the other side, or the case on the other side. So just be very careful with these ribbon cables. You have to disconnect both of them and just look at the angle or look at the way that they open. You can see here how they open, so when you are opening your radio, you can use this as a reference to detach your ribbon cables in an easier way. Hot air is going to help us with the glue of the screen, so it's always a good idea to warm up the screen, warm up where there is glue. And I found out that in this radio you have glue around the corners on the screen, and in the center. In the center of the screen there was a sticker or a piece of glue where the screen was also attached. Using some of my tools, I can pry the screen out of the case very carefully. This is the sensitive part of the whole process. Take your time here, and then once that is disconnected, we can start moving everything to the new case. And to put things back starts backwards, right? Like start with the screen, insert the screen in the right place, make sure that you have enough glue on the screen so it attaches to the case. Then start with electronics, the board, the big one, the one that has the big chip with ARM on it, and connect the ribbon cables. Once the ribbon cables are in place, make sure that all the buttons are in place as well. They are hanging there, they will hold just by pressure, and then you can start closing things up. The two main boards are the ones that should be first. Again, remember to have all the buttons in it. Screw all this in, and then you can move to screw in the switches and the gimbals. The order between the two of them are not very important. But I did a mistake of trying to put the gimbals before the electronic board, and it didn't really help much. I had to remove them again and put them back after the electronic board. So start with the right order and it shouldn't be any problem. And of course I have to change the background image so it can match the essence of the radio. Moving the electronics wasn't that complicated actually. I thought that it could be more difficult, but I didn't have any big problem. It took me around maybe an hour to do all the work. Maybe a bit more than an hour, but something around that. I don't think I reached 2 hours. I'm sure that for Linus, his work was much longer. this is kind of like a piece of art, right? And it should have taken quite some time to do something. But now I have a very, very unique radio. No one else in the world has the same radio as I have, to the point that I'm almost scared of using it so I don't, scratch or do something to it, because it's pretty cool. This is a modification that I would consider between a medium or high kind of work that you need to do, especially on the artistic part. If you really want to have something cool that it's very well made, then I would recommend you to get someone like Linus that can do that kind of work, and you can collaborate with them like as I did, and get something out of it. You can even contact Linus if you want. All his information is going to be in the description of the video, and he already has experience doing this, and you can always tell him what you want, and I'm sure that he can try to help you out. So now I have a full functional radio with everything that I used to have before. All the switches are working, the screen, the color screen is there, the touch screen is working. I verify all that, and now I have this super cool looking unique radio in my hands. Of course, this modification doesn't bring any functionality, any extra functionality to you or to your FPV flying. This is completely aesthetic, and it's something, again, that I like to do because I like to have unique things. If you have the chance, go ahead and do something similar, because it's going to be fun. You have the reference in this video, both for the electronics and how to move them and how to check your radio to move from one side to the other. And you have the reference of me doing something unique with the colors and the paintings and so on, to see that it actually works. This is what I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.